Today I'm excited to announce that we are in the garden of Dee Nash. Dee Nash is a native Oklahoman and fellow friend and gardener. And Dee is a popular blogger, podcaster, writer, garden coach. I mean, Dee, what else? Did I miss anything?
You didn't miss anything. No, that's good.
So thank you for inviting us. This is your home garden.
It is my home garden.
And also the place where it provides you so much inspiration for what you're doing.
Right, I think it grew. The more things I did, the more it grew, right?
It's a real habit, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It is a real habit.
So today, I mean, there's so much to talk about, but today we're going to talk about daylilies. And I know you have quite an experience. Tell us a little bit about your experience with growing daylilies.
Yeah, daylilies are America's favorite perennial because they're easy. They're super easy to grow, and there's lots of different types, and we were going to talk today a little bit about some of the types. And you really like the U.S.
I do. Can I touch it?
Yeah, you can touch it.
Sorry. I learned that you're not necessarily supposed to touch daylilies in gardens, but because they're very fragile.
They are fragile because they're mostly made up of water, which is why they have diamond dusting, which is that shine that they get onto the petals. But it's also why they die within one day. They only bloom for one day. That's why their name is Hemerocallis, beauty for one day, right?
So you're often looking for a lot of buds on there so that you get more.
You want a lot of buds, and you want a lot of branching. You want good branching. And you also want your scapes to bloom way up out of the foliage, because if they bloom down in the foliage, you can't see them.
Right.
And that you want to see that, right?
Yeah, and they're right up here in our site, so that's nice.
Yeah, I try to pick ones that grow really tall. Of course, the rain this year helped, which made things easier. But this is a single form, and it's not quite it's a trumpet shape, not a bagel shape. Bagels are more rounded.
Okay.
This is a UF, which is an unusual form.
Okay, so this is our more traditional one that we often see.
And yeah, and this is not traditional at all. But this particular one has cascading petals, and it's one of my favorites.
Well, I love this. With just the long strappy flowers, it just gives you a lot more color in the garden.
It does give you a lot more color. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit. You have some more UFs down here, which means unusual form.
Unusual form, and UFs can be crispate, which that one over there that is called Radiation Biohazard is a crispate, a UF crispate. This one is a cascading.
Before we go back to
you love this one.
The Radiation Biohazard?
Radiation Biohazard.
Okay, so most people don't have Radiation Biohazard in their garden, but I do like yours.
Yeah.
And so what's neat about it is the petals are well, it's like you have your sepals and your petals different colors that create that.
That's true. Yeah, and a lot of times you'll see that on daylilies. Often the petals and the sepals are slightly different. And they're also, this is the most hybridized plant among aficionados.
Daylilies are?
Daylilies are, because they are super easy to hybridize. Okay. It's very easy to switch out that pollen, you know?
So have you gotten into that yet? Or?
No, I have never hybridized. I'm not interested. I think it's too hard and takes too long. And that one's Rolling Raven. Rolling Raven is a cascade UF form.
And so it's supposed to have that twisted petal.
Yeah, and the hotter it gets, the more those will twist and twirl, and the more those will pinch over there. Okay. So that's kind of a cool thing.
And when you say pinching, you're talking about?
The end of the petal where it pinches together, that's a crispate form. Okay. So there's a lot to daylilies.
In this heat, I have other plants that are kind of
dripping.
Pinching. So here we have another traditional single. That's right here, but it looks like it's got that pinched.
It does.
Here.
It's really also. It's not actually a UF, but it's close.
Okay.
And then that's a double. And what's interesting about that one? That's jelly-filled donut. Doubles are
another great name.
I know they do. They name them great names. So jelly-filled donut is really great because it doubles consistently. On double forms, you might not get much consistency. I have another double form that hardly ever doubles, and it's Guadalajara. And this one always doubles. So that is a really fine double plant. But it needs to have a little bit more branching, really. See, because we're liable to break them if we pull them too much apart.
Stuck together there.
But this is good right here. So you just don't want them blooming all at the same time. And then there are also single forms that have toothiness, like raspberry goosebumps over here. It has a toothiness to the edge.
Yeah, so I thought that was what you were referring to as ruffles, but that's a little bit more of a crispier edge.
Yeah, it's a crispier edge. Yeah, they worked really hard to go from ruffles to that crispy kind of toothiness. And there's one, I think, that's called Bites Back or something, which is kind of cute. And then that one over there has ruffles.
Okay, so that's a little bit of a softer ruffle edge to it.
Right, and then then we could get into eye zones. I mean, you could really talk about daylilies all day long, but I think the great thing to remember is get ones that bloom up tall out of the foliage. And also one interesting aspect to daylilies is that you don't feed them with normal flower fertilizer. You want to have bigger clumps so you have more flowers, so you feed them nitrogen.
Oh.
They really love millorganite.
Okay, all right.
They
So
really
you
do.
want to really boast that.
You want to boost it
Yeah,
up.
yeah. So tell us a little bit about also, while we're talking about kind of the nutrients and stuff, what soil conditions, obviously full sun.
They'll grow in almost any soil conditions at all, but if you want good big clumps, you want to have good consistent watering. I water everything on drip irrigation, and you want to have a real big clump, so you want to feed them early spring. I didn't feed these this year.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. And I don't think they're quite as big as they normally would be, but they're pretty good. I also mulch with fine pine bark because I'm a big fan of that. And over time, the worms take it down in the soil, and then you have, bigger clumps.
Right. And
it's
then
all about the clumps.
How often would you divide those clumps? Is there a clump that gets too big?
No, they don't really get too big, but
Not like
sometimes
iris that might die or
No, and they
anything?
don't
Okay.
die in the center
Yeah.
like grasses, for
Right.
example, ornamental grasses. So I don't divide them unless I'm digging them up for somebody to give them to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll talk about that a little later. Dee, thank
bet.
you so much
You're-
for sharing your daylilies with us and,
Thank you
and
for
telling us
coming.
a little bit about them.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this video. It's part of our Oklahoma Gardening YouTube channel. You can also find even more videos on our OK Gardening Classics YouTube channel. And join us on social media for great gardening tips, photos, and discussion.